Equalizing assessments of things. Zeke of the southern wall was reclining against a low table on the ground, releasing his breath into heaven above, all in a scatter as if loosed from a partner. Yenqing Zio stood in attendance before him. "What has happened here?" he said. "Can the body really be made like dried wood, the mind like dead ashes? What reclines against this table now is not what reclined against it before." Zeke said, "A good question, Yen. What has happened here is simply that I have lost me. Do you understand? You hear the piping of man, but not yet the piping of the earth. You hear the piping of the earth, but not yet the piping of heaven." Zio said, "Please tell me more." Zeke replied, "When the great clump belches forth its vital breath, we call it the wind. As soon as it arises, raging cries emerge from all the 10,000 hollows. Don't tell me you've never heard how long the rustling continues, on and on. The towering trees of the forest, 100 spans around, are riddled with indentations and holes like noses, mouths, ears, like sockets, enclosures, mortars, like ponds, like puddles. Roarers and whizzers, scoldas and sighers, shouters, wailers, boomers, growlers. One leads with a yi. Another answers with a yua. A light breeze brings a small harmony, while a powerful gale makes for a harmony vast and grand. And once the sharp wind has passed, all these holes return to their silent emptiness. Have you never seen all the tempered attunements, all the cunning contentions?" Zio said, "So the piping of the earth means just the sound of these hollows. And the piping of man would be the sound of bamboo panpipes. What then is the piping of heaven?" Zeke said, "It gusts through all the 10,000 differences, allowing each to go its own way. But since each one selects out its own, what identity can there be for their rouser? A large consciousness is idle and spacey, a small consciousness is cramped and circumspect. Big talk is bland and flavorless, petty talk is detailed and fragmented. We sleep and our spirits converge, we awake and our bodies open outward. We give, we receive, we act, we construct. All day long we apply our minds to struggles against one thing or another, struggles unadorned or struggles concealed, but in either case tightly packed one after another without gap. The small fears leave us nervous and depleted, the large fears leave us stunned and blank. Shooting forth like an arrow from a bowstring, such is our presumption when we arbitrate right and wrong. Holding fast as if to sworn oaths, such is our defense of our victories. Worn away as if by autumn and winter, such is our daily dwindling, drowning us in our own activities, unable to turn back. Held fast as if bound by cords, we continue along the same ruts. The mind is left on the verge of death, and nothing can restore its vitality. Joy and anger, sorrow and happiness, plans and regrets, transformations and stagnations, unguarded abandonment and deliberate posturing, music flowing out of hollows, mushrooms of billowing steam. Day and night they alternate before us, but no one knows whence they sprout. That is enough. That is enough. Is it from all of this, presented ceaselessly day and night, that we come to exist? Without that there would be no me, to be sure, but then again without me there would be nothing selected out from it all. This is certainly something close to hand, and yet we do not know what makes it so. If there is some controller behind it all, it is peculiarly devoid of any manifest sign. Its ability to flow and to stop makes its presence plausible, but even then it shows no definite form. That would make it a reality with no definite form. The 100 bones, the 9 openings, the 6 internal organs are all present here as my body. Which one is most dear to me? Do you delight in all equally, or do you have some favorite among them? Or are they all mere servants and concubines? Are these servants and concubines unable to govern each other? Or do they take turns as master and servant? If there exists a genuine ruler among them, then whether we could find out the facts about him or not would neither add to nor subtract from that genuineness. If you regard what you have received as fully formed once and for all, unable to forget it, all the time it survives is just a vigil spent waiting for its end. In the process, you grind and lacerate yourself against all the things around you. Its activities will be over as quickly as a horse galloping by, unstoppable, is it not sad? All your life you labor and nothing is achieved. Worn and exhausted to the point of collapse, never knowing what it all amounts to, how can you not lament this? What good does it do if others say to us he is not dead? The body has decayed and the mind went with it. Can this be called anything but an enormous sorrow? Is human life always this bewildering, or am I the only bewildered one? Is there actually any man or anything in a man that is not bewildered? If we follow whatever has so far taken shape, fully formed in our minds, making that our teacher, who could ever be without a teacher? The mind comes to be what it is by taking possession of whatever it selects out of the process of alternation, but does that mean it has to truly understand that process? The fool takes something up from it too. But to claim that there are any such things as right and wrong before they come to be fully formed in someone's mind in this way, that is like saying you left for you today and arrived there yesterday. This is to regard the non-existent as existent. The existence of the non-existent is beyond the understanding of even the divine sage King Yu, so what possible sense could it make to someone like me? But human speech is not just a blowing of air. Speech has something of which it speaks, something it refers to. Yes, but what it refers to is peculiarly unfixed. So is there really anything it refers to? Or has nothing ever been referred to? You take it to be different from the chirping of baby birds. But is there really any difference between them? Or is there no difference? Is there any dispute or is there no dispute? Anything demonstrated or nothing demonstrated? How could courses be so obscured that there could be any question of genuine or fake among them? How could words be so obscured that there could be any question of right or wrong among them? Where can you go without it being a course? What can you say without it being affirmable? Courses are obscured by the small accomplishments already formed and completed by them. Words are obscured by the ostentatious blossoms of reputation that come with them. Hence we have the rights and wrongs of the Confucians and Mahdists, each affirming what the other negates and negating what the other affirms. But if you want to affirm what they negate and negate what they affirm, nothing compares to the illumination of the obvious. There is no being that is not that. There is no being that is not this. But one cannot be seeing these from the perspective of that. One knows them only from this, i.e., from one's own perspective. Thus, we can say that emerges from this and this follows from that. This is the theory of the simultaneous generation of this and that. But by the same token, their simultaneous generation is their simultaneous destruction and vice versa. Simultaneous affirmability is simultaneous negatability and vice versa. What is circumstantially right is also circumstantially wrong and vice versa. Thus, the sage does not proceed from any one of them alone, but instead lets them all bask in the broad daylight of heaven. And that too is only a case of going by the rightness of the present this. This is also a that. That is also a this. That posits a this and a that, a right and a wrong of its own. But this also posits a this and a that, a right and a wrong of its own. So is there really any that versus this, any right versus wrong? Or is there really no that versus this? When this and that right and wrong are no longer coupled as opposites, that is called the course's axis, the axis of all courses. When this axis finds its place in the center, it responds to all the endless things it confronts, thwarted by none. For it has an endless supply of rights and an endless supply of wrongs. Thus, I say, nothing compares to the illumination of the obvious. To use this finger to show how a finger is not a finger is no match for using not this finger to show how a finger is not a finger. To use this horse to show that a horse is not a horse is no match for using not this horse to show that a horse is not a horse. Heaven and earth are one finger. All things are one horse. Something is affirmative because someone affirms it. Something is negative because someone negates it. Courses are formed by someone walking them. Things are so by being called so. Whence thus and so? From thus and so being affirmed of them. Whence not thus and so? From thus and so being negated of them. Each thing necessarily has some place from which it can be affirmed as thus and so, and some place from which it can be affirmed as acceptable. So no thing is not right, no thing is not acceptable. For whatever we may define as a beam as opposed to a pillar, as a leper as opposed the great beauty Shishir, or whatever might be from some perspective strange, grotesque, uncanny, or deceptive, there is some course that opens them into one another, connecting them to form a oneness. Whenever fragmentation is going on, formation, completion is also going on. Whenever formation is going on, destruction is also going on. Hence, all things are neither formed nor destroyed, for these two also open into each other, connecting to form a oneness. It is only someone who really gets all the way through them that can see how the two sides open into each other to form a oneness. Such a person would not define rightness in any one particular way, but would instead entrust it to the everyday function of each being. Their everyday function is what works for them, and working just means this opening up into each other, their way of connecting. Opening to form a connection just means getting what you get, go as far as whatever you happen to get to, and leave it at that. It is all just a matter of going by the rightness of the present this. To be doing this without knowing it and not because you have defined it as right is called the course. But to labor your spirit trying to make all things one without realizing that it is all the same, whether you do so or not, is called 3 in the morning. What is this 3 in the morning? A monkey trainer was distributing chestnuts. He said, "I'll give you 3 in the morning and 4 in the evening." The monkeys were furious. "Well then," he said, "I'll give you 4 in the morning and 3 in the evening." The monkeys were delighted. This change of description and arrangement caused no loss, but in one case it brought anger and in another delight. He just went by the rightness of their present this. Thus, the sage uses various rights and wrongs to harmonize with others and yet remains at rest in the middle of heaven, the potter's wheel. This is called walking 2 roads. The understanding of the ancients really got all the way there. Where had it arrived? To the point where, for some, there had never existed so-called things. This is really getting there, as far as you can go. When no things are there, nothing more can be added. Next, there were those for whom things existed but never any definite boundaries between them. Next, there were those for whom there were boundaries but never any rights and wrongs. When rights and wrongs waxed bright, the course began to wane. What set the course to waning was exactly what brought the cherishing of one thing over another to its fullness. But is there really any waning versus fullness? Or is there really no such thing as waning versus fullness? In a certain sense, there exists waning versus fullness. In that sense, we can say that the Zhao family are zither players. But in a certain sense, there is no such thing as waning versus fullness. In that sense, we can say, on the contrary, that the Zhao family are no zither players. Zhao Wen's zither playing, Master Kuang's baton waving, Huizi's desk slumping, the understanding these 3 had of their arts flourished richly. This was what they flourished in, and thus they pursued these arts to the end of their days. They delighted in them, and observing that this delight of theirs was not shared, they wanted to make it obvious to others. So they tried to make others understand as obvious what was not obvious to them, and thus some ended their days debating about the obscurities of hardness and whiteness, and Zhao Wen's son ended his days still grappling with his father's zither strings. Can this be called success, being fully accomplished at something? In that case, even I am fully accomplished. Can this be called failure, lacking the full accomplishment of something? If so, neither I nor anything else can be considered fully accomplished. Thus, the radiance of drift and doubt is the sage's only map. He makes no definition of what is right, but instead entrusts it to the everyday function of each thing. This is what I call the illumination of the obvious. Now I will try some words here about this. But I don't know if it belongs in the same category as this or not. For belonging in a category and not belonging in that category themselves form a single category. Being similar is so similar to being dissimilar. So there is finally no way to keep it different from that. Nevertheless, let me try to say it. There is a beginning. There is a not yet beginning to be a beginning. There is a not yet beginning to not yet begin to be a beginning. There is existence. There is non-existence. There is a not yet beginning to be non-existence. There is a not yet beginning to not yet begin to be non-existence. Suddenly there is non-existence. But I do not yet know whether the existence of non-existence is ultimately existence or non-existence. Now I have said something, but I do not yet know, has what I have said really said anything? Or has it not really said anything? Nothing in the world is larger than the tip of a hair in autumn, and Mti is small. No one lives longer than a dead child, and old Pimzu died an early death. Heaven and earth are born together with me, and the 10,000 things and I are one. But if we are all one, can there be any words? But since I have already declared that we are one, can there be no words? The one and the word are already two, the two and the original unnamed one are three. Going on like this, even a skilled chronicler could not keep up with it, not to mention a lesser man. So even moving from non-existence to existence, we already arrive at three. How much more when we move from existence to existence? Rather than moving from anywhere to anywhere, then let us just go by the rightness of whatever is before us as the present this. Now, courses have never had any sealed borders between them, and words have never had any constant sustainability. It is by establishing definitions of what is this, what is right, that boundaries are made. Let me explain what I mean by boundaries. There are right and left, then there are classes of things and ideas of the proper responses to them, then there are roles and disputes, then there are competitions and struggles. Let's call these the 8 virtues. As for the sage, he may admit that something exists beyond the 6 limits of the known world, but he does not further discuss it. As for what is within the known world, he will discuss it but not express an opinion on it. As for historical events, he will give an opinion but not debate it. For wherever a division is made, something is left undivided. Wherever debate shows one of 2 alternatives to be right, something remains undistinguished and unshown. What is it? The sage hides it in his embrace while the masses of people debate it, trying to demonstrate it to one another. Thus I say that demonstration by debate always leaves something unseen. The great course is unproclaimed. Great demonstration uses no words. Great humanity is not humane. Great rectitude is not fastidious. Great courage is not invasive. For when the course becomes explicit, it ceases to be the course. When words demonstrate by debate, they fail to communicate. When humanity is constantly sustained, it cannot reach its maturity. When rectitude is pure, it cannot extend itself to others. When courage is invasive, it cannot succeed. These 5 are originally round, but they are forced towards squareness. Hence, when the understanding consciousness comes to rest in what it does not know, it has reached its utmost. The demonstration that uses no words, the course that is not a course, who understands these things? If there is something able to understand them in this sense, it can be called the heavenly reservoir, poured into without ever getting full, ladled out of without ever running out, ever not knowing its own source. This is called the shadowy splendor. In ancient times, Yao asked Shun, I want to attack Zhong, Kuai, and Sueo, for though I sit facing south on the throne, still I am not at ease. Why is this? Shun said, though these 3 may continue to dwell out among the grasses and brambles, why should this make you ill at ease? Once upon a time, 10 suns rose in the sky at once, and the 10,000 things were all simultaneously illuminated. And how much better are many virtuosities than many suns? Nyak K asked Wang and I, do you know what all things agree in considering right? Wang and I said, how could I know that? Nyak K said, do you know that you don't know? Wang and I said, how could I know that? Nyak K said, then are all beings devoid of knowledge? Wang and I said, how could I know that? Still, let me try to say something about this. How could I know that what I call knowing is not really not knowing? How could I know that what I call not knowing is not really knowing? But now let me take a stab at asking you about it. When people sleep in a damp place, they wake up deathly ill and sore about the waist, but what about eels? If people live in trees, they tremble with fear and worry, but how about monkeys? Of these 3, which knows what is the right place to live? People eat the flesh of their livestock, deer eat grass, snakes eat centipedes, hawks and eagles eat mice. Of these 4, which knows the right thing to eat? Monkeys take she-monkeys for mates, bucks mount does, male fish frolic with female fish, while humans regard Mao Chang and Lady Li as great beauties, but when fish see them they dart into the depths, when birds see them they soar into the skies. When deer see them they bolt away without looking back. Which of these 4 knows what is rightly alluring? From where I see it, the transitions of humanity and responsibility and the trails of right and wrong are hopelessly tangled and confused. How could I know how to distinguish which is right among them? Nyak said, if that's the case, then you can't even tell benefit from harm. Does the consummate person really fail to distinguish between benefit and harm? Wang and I said, the consummate person is miraculous beyond understanding. The lakes may burst into flames around him, but this can't make him feel it is too hot. The rivers may freeze over, but this can't make him feel it is too cold. Ferocious thunder may crumble the mountains, the winds may shake the seas, but this cannot make him feel startled. Such a person chariots on the clouds and winds, piggybacks on the sun and moon, and wanders beyond the four seas. Even death and life can do nothing to change him, much less the transitions between benefit and harm. Jukazi asked Chuang Tzu, I have heard the master relating the claim that the sage does not engage in projects, does not seek benefit, does not avoid harm, does not pursue happiness, does not follow any specific course. He says something by saying nothing and says nothing by saying something, and thus does he wander beyond the dust and grime. The master considered these rude and careless words, but I believe they are the practice of the mysterious course. What do you think? Chuang Tzu said these words would send even the Yellow Emperor into fevers of confusion. How could Confucius understand them? And you, on the contrary, are judging far too prematurely. You see an egg and try to get it to crow at dawn. You see a crossbow pellet and try to roast it for your dinner. I'm going to try speaking some reckless words. How about listening just as recklessly? While the mass of men are beleaguered and harried, the sage is dim and dense, standing shoulder to shoulder with the sun and moon, scooping up time and space and smooching them all together, leaving them all to their own slippery mush so that every enslavement is also an ennobling. He is there taking part in the diversity of 10,000 harvests, but in each he tastes one and the same purity of fully formed maturation. For to him each thing is just so, each thing is right, and so he enfolds them all within himself by affirming the rightness of each. How then do I know that delighting in life is not a delusion? How do I know that in hating death I am not like an orphan who left home in youth and no longer knows the way back? Lady Li was a daughter of the border guard of Ai. When she was first captured and brought to Qin, she wept until tears drenched her collar. But when she got to the palace, sharing the king's luxurious bed and feasting on the finest meats, she regretted her tears. How do I know that the dead don't regret the way they used to cling to life? If you dream of drinking wine, in the morning you will weep. If you dream of weeping, in the morning you will go out hunting. While dreaming, you don't know it's a dream. You might even interpret a dream in your dream, and then you wake up and realize it was all a dream. Perhaps a great awakening would reveal all of this to be a vast dream. And yet, fools imagine they are already awake, how clearly and certainly they understand it all. This one is a lord, they decide, that one is a shepherd, what prejudice? Confucius and you are both dreaming. And when I say you're dreaming, I'm dreaming too. So if you were to agree with these words as right, I would name that nothing more than a way of offering condolences for the demise of their strangeness. For actually, even if some great sage shows up after 10,000 generations who knows how to unravel them, it would still be as if he arrived after only a single day. Suppose you and I get into a debate. If you win and I lose, does that really mean you are right and I am wrong? If I win and you lose, does that really mean I'm right and you're wrong? Must one of us be right and the other wrong? Or could both of us be right or both of us wrong? If neither you nor I can know, a third person would be even more benighted. Whom should we have straightened out the matter? Someone who agrees with you? But since he already agrees with you, how can he straighten it out? Someone who agrees with me? But since she already agrees with me, how can he straighten it out? Someone who disagrees with both of us? But if he already disagrees with both of us, how can he straighten it out? Someone who agrees with both of us? But since he already agrees with both of us, how can he straighten it out? So neither you nor I nor any third party can ever know how it is. Shall we wait for yet some other? What is meant by harmonizing with them by means of their heavenly transitions? It means right is also not right and so is also not so. If right were ultimately right, its differentiation from not right would require no debate. If so were ultimately so, its differentiation from not so would require no debate. Thus, even though the transforming voices may depend on one another, this is tantamount to not depending on anything at all. Harmonize with them all by means of their heavenly transitions, follow along with them in their limitless overflowings, and you will be able to fully live out your years. Forget what year it is, forget what should or should not be. Let yourself be jostled and shaken by the boundlessness, for that is how to be lodged securely in the boundlessness. The penumbra said to the shadow, first you were walking, then you were standing still. First you were sitting, then you were upright. Why can't you decide on a single course of action? The shadow said, do I depend on something to make me as I am? Does what I depend on something else? Do I depend on it as a snake does on its skin, or a cicada on its shell? How would I know why I am so or not so? Once Chuang Tzu dreamt he was a butterfly fluttering about joyfully just as a butterfly would. He followed his whims exactly as he liked and knew nothing about Chuang Tzu. Suddenly he awoke, and there he was, the startled Chuang Tzu in the flesh. He did not know if Zhou had been dreaming he was a butterfly or if a butterfly was now dreaming it was Zhou. Surely, Zhou and a butterfly count as two distinct identities. Such is what we call the transformation of one thing into another.